In this video, we will be looking at Anish Giri's black repertoire. Giri is one of the candidates. He qualified by rating as the player with the highest average rating for 12 rating periods from February 2019 to January 2020. It was very interesting to look at Giri's black repertoire. I have filtered out the games on the Chess24 database to include games from 2019 up till present day. Let's begin. First thing to say is Giri played 123 games with black. He faced e4 55 times, and out of these 55 games, he played Sicilian 33 times and e5 22 times. First, let's look at what type of Sicilian player he is. Knight f3, d6 is his most popular response in 20 games, and d4. Firstly, let's look at bishop b5 check, which he faced 6 times, and he blocks with the knight, so he likes to keep pieces on. After castle, a6, bishop d3, knight f6, b5, a4, c4, and bishop b7. So this was one very interesting game. Why did black choose to set up in this way? By pushing c4? Because then there's pressure on the white pawn on e4. In this game, moves continued, knight a3, you grab the pawn, but white grabs on b5, d5, b3, take, e6. Later on, Giri made a draw against Harikrishna. Another top-level game was after knight d7, he faced bishop a4 against Nakamura in the Tata Steel India Rapid. Knight f6, e6, a6, and b5 again with c4. So Giri did this against Harikrishna as well. Playing this kind of setup to stop white getting the center with d4. Because if d4 is played, en passant is possible. a4, bishop b7, d4 happened, and white's center is reduced. Queen d3, knight c5, and the game has just begun. Giri faced the Open Sicilian 13 times last year. Take, knight f6, knight c3, and a6. So if he plays a d6 Sicilian, he always goes for the Najdorf in 13 games. Bishop e3 was his most popular response. So we will check this out very soon. Now, other options that he's faced. Bishop g5, one game last year, and after e6, knight d7 with queen c7, b5 expanding on the queen side, bishop e7, h6. Very sharp position, and after this, rook b8. He outplayed Dragon Solak in the middle game, but this did lead to a draw. After bishop e1, b4 is still possible, and knight d5 didn't actually work out for white because take, and rook a4, key move. And this game was really interesting because even though white is penetrating through the center, here black does not take on e6 and plays knight c5, check, king f7, bishop c3, bishop f6. And a really nice move coming up after b4 because this stops rook coming in to check on a1. Giri now played knight b3 check. Take, queen c3. White has to get the queens off. Take. And this led to a draw, but black is better in this bishop pair endgame. He faced h3 once last year in the Grand Chess Tour Rapid in Paris, e5, and then h5, stopping white going g4. So g3, bishop e7, and expanding. Knight in, take, and rook a7, a cool move because this rook, it could go to b7 or to d7. If it goes to d7, then the bishop on c8 tends to go to e6 first. Queen voluntarily goes back. Nepomniachtchi has white against Giri, and after knight d7, Giri puts the rook on b7, and then we have this middle game. Eventually, this led to a draw. Knight on c5, maybe the bishop on c8, it could go to d7, it could go to e6. Giri faced bishop d3 last year, and after e5, knight e2, bishop e7, castle. Castle was one game, but also he went bishop e6 in another game. This was against Michael Adams in the European Team Championships. Knight e2 means knight g3 next, knight c6. This is a really accurate move, I think, because white has spent 2 moves to get the knight to g3. If the knight is on f3, then knight c6 is really for the classical Sicilian player. But now knight c6 makes sense. It doesn't have to go to d7, which it does most of the time in the Najdorf. Knight h5, Adams says it's time to get rid of this knight on h5. Take, knight b4. Here we can go knight d4, but Giri wants to go for the bishop pair. Queen d7, rook c8, capture and castle, and bishop pair is useful for black because black is a little bit worse structurally because of the backward d6 pawn, but the bishop pair will compensate for that. Bishop e3, rook c7, and eventually this type of position, it led to a draw. Bishop f2, bishop d8, breaking open on the queen side. Take, things coming off, and d6 pawn is not so weak because rook is on b6 guarding it. No problem here. Later on, this game led to a draw. Giri faced bishop e3 6 times last year, the English attack. And in those 6 games, Giri has played e5 all the time. Knight f3, he faced in 5 games, getting popular, this knight f3 move. The plan is to play in a positional manner against the Najdorf, rather than playing knight b3, which he faced as well. In one rapid game against Dominguez in the World Rapid, bishop e6, f3, and h5. So after h5, knight d5, take, knight d7, and later on, I discussed this game in a lot more detail in my video called The Phantom Variation. Peter Lecco mentioned this term when I was watching the World Rapid. So go check this video out, it is in the description, and I will put it as a card to this video. Knight f3, Giri faced this 5 times, and bishop e7 all the time, and now we have knight d2 with b5, or maybe his opponent goes bishop c4. Let's check out bishop e6. Bishop b3 was in one game, and knight d7 castle, rook c8. It looks nice to have all these pieces bunched up. We see this kind of minor piece set up by black in the Najdorf often, and maybe Karjakin wasn't expecting this because there's a knight on f3, so it does challenge the bishop on e6. But Giri still went for it, because after knight g5, it's not such a problem. You can go bishop c4 or even bishop b3. It is very important this pawn is still here, protecting a6, so you have the chance to kick it away. You can castle as well. And then the queen can go to c7, knight can go to c5. In this game against Karjakin, rook c8, knight h4, knight c5, putting pressure on e4, take, rook e1, queen d7, g3 castle. And a really nice maneuver coming up, that's why I wanted to go through this game. Bishop d8, coming round to b6 typically, but here Giri decided to put it on a5, outplaying Karjakin in the Najdorf. Defend your d6 pawn, giving white double pawns, and then eventually Giri went on to win this game. Knight d2, b5, a4, b4, knight d5, and this was his game against Wei Yi in the Jerusalem Grand Prix. Knight c4 coming into b6, so we stopped that. a5, rook b8, and then f5, king h8. Looks very similar to a Shevnikov, which we saw many times during the World Championship match. Carlsen versus Caruana. This position, this middle game looks very familiar. Bishop a7, rook b7, bishop b6, and Giri decided to give up the exchange. Eventually, this game led to a draw. Very exciting draw. His other opponents have played knight c3 against him, and he has always played d6, giving his opponents the chance to transpose back into an open Sicilian. And we have knight e2, knight f6, g3, g6, bishop g7, and we have rook b8, knight e8, typical maneuvering by black to get counterplay on the queen side. Giri went on to defeat Fedoseev in Tartar Steel. He also faced Badur Jobava, and he went for bishop b5 check. Bishop d7, putting it back, and after d3, knight a5. Looks like black will get the bishop pair, but white is ahead in development. e6, e5, d5, dropping the knight back, take. If black gets the chance to play d4, bringing the bishop on c6 to life, then black will have a nice position. Castle, knight e7, you don't want to go d4 here, knight e4 is a problem. Knight e7, and the game went on. Very complex battle here.